everybody, so today I'm going to be doing another conspiracy theory video. Recently I was sick and watched Titanic like literally a million times, which kind of sent me down like a rabbit hole of Titanic. So today we're going to be doing Titanic conspiracy theories. So let's just get started. Okay, so the first conspiracy theory, and it's honestly probably one of like the most well-known conspiracy theories of Titanic, is that it wasn't Titanic that actually sank. It was one of her sister ships called the Olympic. The Olympic had been in 2 serious wrecks within just months of its maiden voyage, and the cost to fix the ship was astronomically expensive. So in order to get the insurance money, they switched out the Titanic with the Olympic, knowing that it would not make it to its final destination in New York and would actually sink. Some of the evidence behind this is that people who were there that day Titanic set sail said that the ship was tilting to its left, and some of the survivors were saying that the ship had been tilting to its left almost the entire trip, which was actually something that the Olympic was known of having a problem of because of its wrecks. Also, a lot of people believe this theory because a lot of very high up people like JP Morgan were supposed to be on board Titanic, but at last minute decided not to go, saying they were sick or had prior engagements. The next theory is a very short theory, as there is pretty much next to no evidence supporting this, which is that the Titanic never hit an iceberg. It actually was attacked by a German U-boat. The only evidence behind this is that survivors of the Titanic have said that before the ship went down, they heard some type of explosions or something being like shot at. And also survivors said that they saw like the lights of another ship off into the distance hours before they were rescued. So that's kind of like the only evidence behind it. I don't know. Personally, I think that the explosions they could have heard was the Titanic like literally hitting the iceberg, like the iceberg like punching holes into the side of the Titanic. But so this next theory is that the Titanic was cursed by the remains of a mummy pharaoh that was on board in where the cargo is stored. People think that this mummy's remains were cursed, and that that's the reason why the Titanic sank so tragically and so quickly. People feel like this also happened because White Star Line had a reputation for not getting the area where they were going to be building their ships, or even the actual ship itself, blessed beforehand, which is something that a lot of companies that build cruise ships do, is that they get it blessed beforehand just to, you know, have some like good mojo. And White Star Line had a reputation for not doing this. People actually died while building the Titanic too, and it's said that a lot of people feel like this happened because White Star Lines did not have somebody come in to bless the ship. And also people think that because of this, the Titanic was cursed because they did not have somebody higher up watching over them. This next theory I 110% believe because it's just like so wild, and it is that the Titanic was actually predicted. So we've heard of these tragic events being predicted before, like 9/11 was predicted in all sorts of shows in the 90s, the most famous one being The Simpsons. And people think that the Titanic was actually predicted. So basically the evidence behind this is that a writer in 1886 called William T. Stead wrote a short story called How the Atlantic Mail Steamer Went Down, and it's about a ship called the Atlantic that crashed into another ship, and there were not enough lifeboats on board to save all the passengers. And then in 1912, William T. Stead was actually a passenger on board Titanic. And then another author in the 1890s also wrote a book predicting Titanic, and it was about a ship called the Titan in the Atlantic Ocean that hit an iceberg, and there were not enough lifeboats and they went down, which is like literally the exact same thing as what happened to Titanic. Also in this book, he talked about another ship that was nearby but refused to come and help, which is a lot like what happened with Titanic and the Californian, which is what we're going to get into now. Basically, the last theory isn't really a theory because it's true, and it is that there's a ship nearby called the Californian, and this goes hand in hand with that the Titanic was switched, and because the Californian was a passenger ship and it didn't have any passengers on it, yet was only a few hundred like feet, I guess, but like not within seeing distance. I don't know, it was very, very close to the Titanic. And basically earlier in the night, the Californian sent an alert out to Titanic saying there's a lot of icebergs, don't come, like try, like maybe stop, like we're gonna stop, so because you might hit the iceberg because you can't see them. And basically the Titanic captain was like, no, we're fine, we're gonna keep up with our pace, this is an unsinkable ship, nothing can hurt it, we're fine. And basically told the Californian to leave them alone because they know what they're doing. And so later on in the night, when the Titanic did hit the iceberg and were sending distress signals and firing the thingies up in the air, the Californian thought that the Titanic was just kind of rubbing it in their face and were faking. And the people in charge of like the coding and stuff to send signals out to each other, like if something like this happens, woke up the captain of the Californian, told him what was happening, and the captain just went back to sleep and said, don't worry about it. And this was a passenger ship and they didn't have any passengers on it in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but they did have blankets, coats, and drinks like hot tea and water. So that's a little bit weird because they did kind of seem like they were prepared to step in and like help the Titanic in case something happened, but then they actually never went. And it's proven by like historians and stuff that if the Californian had gone when the distress signals were being sent out, way more people would have survived, because over 1,500 people died that night. And if the Californian had came, that would have been cut by like only maybe a few hundred people, if that. So that's a big theory too. So yeah, that is all of the theories of Titanic that we're going to be talking about. There are so many more that I just didn't write down. Well, I did write them down, but like I'm just not talking about in this video. So if you want to see those, then give this video a thumbs up and comment down below and tell me what you guys think of all these theories, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!